So welcome to today's episode of Behind the Lens podcast. Today we have Drew Slater, who is a part of a company or the founder of a company called Money Up, Time Down with his amazing partner, Marley Slater. Now, Drew and Marley are actually mine and Jess's business coach. We are currently working with them. And so today's chat was a really cool, it was an opportunity to talk business, understand a little bit about his background, some of his beliefs, some of the things that have shaped him in business and whatnot. But it's also a really good opportunity to, obviously, you get to hear and see some of the things that are happening behind the scenes in our business. So it's some really good insights there. We sincerely hope you enjoyed today's episode. We obviously did. And before we do get started, today's episode is powered by Triple Effect Media. So where we create 6 months worth of video content for YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok, film it all in the space of 2 days. We do everything from scripting, filming, editing, as well as publishing all the videos on a weekly basis on behalf of our clients. So if you're interested in finding out more, head to tripleeffect.com.au. Otherwise, let's get started with the show. All right, so welcome to today's podcast. I am joined by the amazing, the inevitable Drew Slater. But in today's podcast, we're going to, talk to Drew, find out a little bit more about him, his background, what he does, but also some of the bits and pieces behind success habits, traits, lessons learned, all those other amazing things. So first of all, welcome, Drew.
Love it, man. Great to be on. Thank you for having me. Always love chatting to you. So keen to see what you have in store for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, believe it or not, and I haven't actually told you this conversation or this interview, this invitation to the podcast was actually inspired from the day that I came and met you in Albury. So we did you took me through a business, what would you call it, like a business consultation. So we're
a deep dive, I call it, like just a full day consult.
Yeah, yep. Absolutely. So between yourself and Marley, your wife, we looked at my business and a whole range of other things, but we actually got to catch up and talk a lot of stuff that was outside of business. And it helped me to sort of reflect on not only myself, but I also got to hear a little bit about, your journey and what you've been doing behind, the business doors, if you will. For those who are listening and never heard of the name Drew Slater, do you want to just give us a little intro as to what you do and how you work and operate anyway?
Yeah, beautiful. Really simple. My wife, Marley, and I run a sort of done for you / done with you sales and marketing company. So in a nutshell, we help people get more clients, and we do it in two different ways. So we either build funnels and run ads for people and help them kind of with their sales team and grow out their sales team. And we either do it for them or we do it with them in terms of like a mentoring / consulting capacity, which is, the level that you and I and Marley work on together, which is, really fun. So that's how I spend most of the week, Monday to Friday anyway. There we go.
Yeah. So look, I think, I don't want to go too deep too quickly, but what I'm really keen on understanding is, what are some of the traits or what are some of the things that you sort of would have experienced during high school or even during, as a younger child or even during your teenage years that sort of gave you some inkling that you'd be in business in general?
Yeah, I guess for me, it was always something that, I grew up with a dad who ran his own company. So it was something that I was very, aware of. I understood the life and the ins and outs of that journey. And probably, I guess, it sort of inspired me to think about it, at least, to understand that it's possible, have that belief that maybe you can do it. So all those things were always there from a very young age for me. And that's kind of, I always had an inkling in the back of my mind that it could be on the cards. And it really wasn't until I went the opposite route and went right down that corporate road, uni degree, fancy job, suits, ties, all that, that I just, I kind of had to do it because I just felt like I didn't fit in that world at all.
All right. So talk to me about, what was it like? Talk to me about the job. Like, what were you doing in the corporate world?
Yeah, so I guess I started my corporate or like work career relatively young. Like I did all right in school. I got a degree in property economics, and then that kind of led me to my first full-time job out of school, which was while I was still studying uni, was basically as a research analyst for a property company, like a big sort of research company. And then I was effectively headhunted to go and work at a listed property trust called General Property Trust, or GPT Group, in the research team. And that was kind of when the alarm bell started to ring that I was in like the best job I could ever hope to get, being really well paid. I was pretty young, and I was just not a happy dude. It just didn't feel right for me at all.
Yeah. Talk to me. So this is where I'm really intrigued, because I actually have a very, very similar experience to what you're talking about, really not feeling like I'm aligned to this job and aligned to what's actually happening.
Yeah.
What was it? Like, what was it about that role that, like, on paper, it's what it sounds like on paper, this ticked all the boxes, but I just knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah, it was more just, I guess I've just always been one of those people that if I see something, I want to make it a bit better, or like I always want to try harder with stuff. And I felt like in that environment, you were never going to be able to achieve that. You know, you had to kind of sit up, shape up, do your time. I was the youngest person in the company, I think. So I just felt like I had this big, long, boring road ahead. And at that time, it's funny looking back on it, because I can kind of see why people now, like now I'm a bit older, why people are attracted to that. And I can also appreciate after 10 years of running businesses that it's also, this road's not for everyone as well. So I'm not one of those guys that argues that, you know, you've got to start a business to be happy. Like if people can go and do corporate and they love it, I'm so stoked for them.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, I don't know. I felt like I saw a lot of things like divorce and just unhappiness, and everyone seemed pretty miserable that I was around, and like everyone was being really well paid. And the turning point for me was actually a moment when we used to get paid monthly. And I just remember there was some dudes who were a bit older than me, and they used to live paycheck to paycheck. And I remember once, like, I think I was shouting them some beers, and I was like, how does this work? These guys are like not that old. They're on 300K a year. How are they borrowing money off a 22-year-old, you know? So I just sort of like started to question it a lot at that time.
Okay. And so, like, what would you, like, what was the reason? Is it because they were like doing drugs and things like that, or what?
Look, I don't think those guys in particular were doing drugs. I was probably the one doing way more drugs back then.
Yeah.
But I think they were just like how to, you know, keep up with the flash lifestyle, right? They had the foods, they had the, you know, the Gucci wallets, the fancy shoes. Like it was that lifestyle.
Yeah. And so understanding that there's obviously the lifestyle that you're talking about, and it's almost like it was. So tell me if this is right. Yeah. Almost felt a little bit too materialistic for what you know, where you stand and what you actually need. Is that a fair way of putting it, or is there a different way you'd put it?
It wasn't necessarily that it was materialistic. It was more just like I just couldn't see the point of slaving away to do this job to just kind of live that life. Like I would rather be in more control. Like I think I've learned I'm relatively... I never thought I was a control freak. And Marley would laugh at me say that I'm a control freak, but I do think in some aspects of life, like especially like earning money, I feel like I want to own that function. I don't want to have someone else, or at least, you know, the man telling me what that looks like. If that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, cool. So fast forward, how did you actually get started in business?
Yeah, so it goes back to that kind of corporate journey. I was super lucky. I got mentored by a guy internally at the company that I was working at. His name's Lachlan Cameron. And he sort of, it's a long story, but I'll cut it very short. He kind of took me aside and said, hey, I've got this like mentoring program. I'll put you through it. He put me through this thing called the 12 Habits. And part of that was looking at your life, like your finances, your life goals, your health goals, and really looking at life in a different way. And that was really the jumping point where, you know, I thought, okay, there's more to life than just one area. So let's try and think about some things that I'm passionate about. And I kind of call it the pendulum theory. So like I was working in corporate research for like a big listed company, and I swung the pendulum all the way the other side and was like, I'm going to become basically like an online personal trainer. Like I did that thing where I did the opposite of pretty much what I was doing. So I was super passionate about health at the time, super passionate about training. And yeah, my brother Ben and I launched it's kind of like a side hustle, effectively, online personal training kind of thing. And that was sort of where we started. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so obviously there's been a few different types of businesses and things that you've been involved in.
Yeah.
Is there anything like, so I'm trying to relate this back to, someone who maybe at that starting point of like, I know I've got this idea, I know I have something that I want to do, and it's more than this job or this corporate job or whatever the case is that I'm in right now. How did not only your first business evolve, but to get to where you are? I'd love to understand a little bit more about your journey and some of the things that worked out, but also some of the things that didn't as well.
Yeah. Oh man, heaps of stuff. We've done lots of different things. Like Marley and I have probably had 6 or 7 different businesses together. We've tried lots of different models. And yeah, I guess if I was speaking specifically to someone who was thinking about starting a business, I would say, and I've helped a few people and we've helped some people traverse that journey. I would say probably first thing is like test some ideas first and like don't just jump ship. Like probably the way we did it was pretty stupid. I literally just walked in and handed my resignation. They were like, "You're an idiot. What's your plan?" And I think at the time I said I'm going to go back to uni, but I just knew I wasn't. Anyways, yeah. So I'd say like not all business models are created equal, and not all markets are created equal, and not all in the kind of businesses that we're in, not all clients are created equal. So like now I always look for where is those sort of overlapping areas where you can get a great market with a great business model with a great client, and that's like does make life easier. Some business models I would stay away from. If you were starting out, you need cash flow. So you're going to stay away from low ticket business models. You're going to stay away from, low ticket subscription or e-commerce or things that require, upfront investment.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So that's like, and I'm sort of reflecting on, so we've obviously been working together for just almost coming to the 6-month mark.
Beautiful.
And so I've obviously gotten, the opportunity to see behind the scenes on some of the, the in-depth stuff that you're talking about and whatnot. One of the things I reflect on, from our conversations is a lot of the time, like every time we sort of talk about an idea or a way of looking at something, almost if not every time, every second time, you're reflecting on, a mentor who's given you some ideas, or a mentor who you've worked with who suggested something. Yeah. And one of the things that I sort of took from our time was the importance of being led in the right direction or having good people around you. So I'd love to understand what your thoughts are, obviously as a coach yourself with you and Marley, but also how you view it in general. And yeah.
I think it's so important, especially like at the start of your journey. You're going to make lots of mistakes. That's okay. I mean, you're just going to make mistakes the whole way through, but having someone or a group of people who are over your shoulder, giving you some, like effectively what I see a mentor is someone that's 100% in your corner, that's going to give you relatively straightforward advice or consult you without really any vested biases or interests other than what they know. So I see it as a very important part of the process. And at the start of our journey, like I pushed the boat out in terms of investing in mentoring. Like there was a time where it was pretty much where 100% of our funds were going. It was like trying to get better at skills and, learn more sales skills, learn more marketing skills, figure out how to, get better business systems, just like fill all those gaps that I knew that were there that I could feel. And we still do it today. And I advocate for it massively. I think it's so important. Yeah,
absolutely. One of the things that we did also talk about, especially, and I'm going to use, my example. So with our business, we've obviously grown quite substantially this year due to a few different factors. And, it's for me in mind, like a lot of our offer, the clientele, pricing it right, looking at our margins, and a few other things that obviously you've helped and worked with us with. One of the things that I was actually really surprised with after our day together was also when we talked about, where does the money go now? Like, all well and good to, create and build a business, a sustainable business, but like also reinvesting back into, your personal journey and all those other things. First of all, prior to this conversation now, I didn't actually know how deep your background was in investing and property, but it obviously makes sense. But do you want to talk to me a little bit more about, because from my understanding, you obviously invested heavily in property, or you've got, different investments working at the moment for yourself and Marley. But do you want to talk to me about that side of like creating a business that's obviously, more than just something to do during the week?
100%. Yeah, I think like for us, like, so in our business, basically, I think about sort of my role as sort of growth, like client focused sales marketing. And I'm super lucky that Marley, my wife, is also really fucking good at money and management and financial process. And like, she's very talented in that area. So a lot of the stuff that we've kind of achieved is because she's come in and just really nailed down that side of our business. Before her, like, I remember there was a time where like we weren't even profitable. Like, I think we was doing okay, but like I was just spending all the money, it was just evaporating every month. And I was sort of getting to the end of the month going like, working pretty hard. Don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere. And we're having a good time. And I think the mindset that we had back then was very much like, if you just kind of, trust the universe, it'll catch you. And that's true to some extent, but you do need to have a plan. And I think the penny drop for us, we were at like a seminar once, and this lady got up and said something around the effect of, she'd made like quite a significant amount of sales in her business. And she said, money needs meaning. And I remember hearing that thinking, that's pretty interesting, like meaning to money. I've never really thought about that way. And so we started thinking about, okay, how long do you want to be in business for? And what is the point of, like these businesses that were in these kind of sort of sales marketing focused kind of agency style companies, mentoring, coaching, whatever they are, like they're pretty difficult to sell. And that means that at some point in time, you're probably not going to want to keep doing this. And we've had so many different companies over the years. Like, I'm pretty aware of the fact that sometimes, even if you do exit a company, it doesn't even look that good. So we've been really focused over the last few years around what are we passionate about outside of just business and earning income there, and how do we make sure that we're staying growing and being profitable? Because a lot of people have the mindset that, if you're growing, then you don't need to be profitable. We've really followed like the profit first system and implement that pretty closely. Like, I think the business owner is taking quite a lot of risk, and it's really easy as you start hiring people to just like go down in profit. So for us, it's very much about property. We love property. It's sort of an asset class that we feel comfortable in and we like it. I think for anyone, you got to figure out what do you like. Like, if you like crypto and you like reading about it and you like investing in it, you got to go all in on that. If you like stocks, that's awesome. Like, become an expert in stocks. Go buy all the mentoring in that space and like figure that game out. And for us, it just kind of is property. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do want to take a little bit of a back turn, coming back to, now that you've shared a little bit about your journey in, business, some of the things that you're obviously doing and all those other things. You talked about your dad, right? Yep. When you were younger. I'd love to understand, when you reflect on your dad and some of the things that he did or works in business, or what are some of the things that that you've taken as a result of what he's shown you during those years? Well, I lost you there. Sorry, my question was, what are some of the things that you definitely inherited, skills, I guess, ideologies, or anything like that from your dad that you've now brought into your business today? Yeah, it's a really good question. I think my dad was or is. And both of my parents, like I feel very lucky. They're awesome parents. Like I definitely grew up in one of those households where, you know, it was just a very loving, happy, my family's very tight basically. So that was kind of my understanding of family has always been a really positive experience. But in terms of my dad, I guess he was one of those guys, he was like, you know, the coach of the soccer team. He was always around, but more than anything, he was one of those people that, and I think about this a lot because we don't have kids and it's obviously something we want to do. And we talk about a lot, Marley and I, like what kind of parents we want to be and all that stuff. But like probably the thing that my dad did better than I would say the average is he gave us a lot of self-belief. Like we have this joke in our family, like none of us have a voice in our head like we can't do something, because he just ingrained in us, like if you want to do it, you're going for it and you'll get it. Like I just remember a story, like when I was a kid, I think it was like year 6. It's like one of my first memories. I have 2 stories about him. Like he used to be the coach of my soccer team and like he would never give me man of the match. And like we'd be driving home, we'd be arguing. I'd be like, fuck you, Dad. Like I scored 3 goals. Like you're kidding. And he's like, listen, man, like it's a bad look. Like I'm the coach. You're never going to get man of the match. Like that's it. And so I thought, oh, okay, like he's actually thinking about my development and like what that looks like. And then as a kid, he used to just always encourage us to like try a little bit harder, you know? So like, for example, we, like if we were playing rugby or whatever, he's like, you should try and like get in the top team, you know, like why not? And then it would just give you that belief the whole way.
Yeah.
Lots of examples, but yeah, he's been a massive influence on my life because he's always been like a enabler.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me. And so what does your mum look after your accounts to this day?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And just reflecting on just that alone, like even something you haven't talked about is the I guess the combination that he brings with your mum, which you're now obviously you're doing with Marley. So talk to me about some of those similarities, and obviously there's things behind there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So mum works with us in the company, and I guess she works basically in the accounts department. So invoicing, manages our bookkeepers, our accounting, all that kind of stuff, which is always funny because mum always knows what's going on in the business. Like we used to have this, that was really funny. Like way back when we used to live in Sydney, like they used to give me this card because it was so hard to reconcile all my expenses. So I had like my own card. And I know my mum does this for my brother as well, but she would always know like what I was up to around the city because I'd be like at this place, and like I can basically track you based on this bloody card. Yeah. But yeah, no. So the dynamics there, and I love obviously the ability to work with my wife. I personally think that, and I'm definitely biased in this, and take it with a grain of salt, and you'll probably resonate because you're on the same path. I think if you have a partner that you are in love with and that you're married to, and then you also run a business, if you can make that work, I feel like you have a very unfair advantage.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I couldn't agree more in the sense of, like not only from from so many different levels. I was about to say financially, when we first started out, like, you know, typically a business partner, if you will, like there's obviously a contract in place. There's lots of different things in place. The cash flows in place and how we should do things but like, it's so much easier to be on the same page with your wife about 100%. Where finance is going, what's happening.
There's no ego.
Yeah. They're like, you're supporting each other mentally. Like, earlier this week, last week, Jess was feeling run down. We're about to move. And she's packing up the home and other things. She's like, I'm just going to spend the next 2 days watching movies. Great. Go do it. Like,
enjoy.
And I couldn't agree more on that front. And especially what you're talking about. I look at, like, I think it would appear that I'm doing it all by myself, from the videos and our presence and everything else. But like, I can tell you right now, like, Jess is in, the other room working and supporting
Correct.
me in so many different ways.
Yeah.
That it's hard to explain. But yeah, talk to me, like, if you were to share what's, like, obviously that's my experience. What are some of the experiences, or what are some of the things that you feel that have an unfair advantage from that point of view as well?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just like, let's just pretend you have two humans and they're business partners. Even if the business makes, say, $50,000 a month in profit, like, financially, you're splitting that in half. And then when there's money decisions to be made, it's always like, well, usually one business partner wants to invest and keep growing, and one wants to take money out, and that can get really messy. There's also lots of ego involved. So, like, yeah, in terms of Marley and I, like, we always just know, if Marley says no, like, this is what I believe we need to do,
Yeah.
I'm 100% going to back her, because I know it's coming from, she just wants the best for our life, and it's sort of, I think you can get to that level of trust with a non-partner business partner, but for the same time, for me, I've had a few failed business partnerships, and it just feels so much more aligned with what we want for our life. And yeah, I think it's not easy for a lot of people, and I feel very lucky that it is, I think, pretty easy for us.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Talk to me, because I know that talk to me about how Marley actually joined your business.
Yeah. So, okay. So we were basically, I think, my brother and I, Ben, we had a company. We were basically, it was effectively, it was similar stuff to this, but it was more business coaching specifically. And we decided that we wanted to do it, separately, which was awesome because it gave him the opportunity to go and do some, new ventures and new things. And at the time, Marley was finishing her second uni degree, and she was kind of studying. So she was helping us out a bit in the business at the time. And honestly, we got to a point where I was just, like, really tapped out in the business, and just, yeah, probably dealing with a lot of that extra pressure of basically having it all on me for a while. And I remember she came home one day, I think I was working pretty late. It might have been like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I was stressed. She just looked at me and she's like, dude, you're going to die. Like, you're just actually not going to be able to handle, like, you can't sustain what you're doing. It's just not going to work. And she's like, give me a year, like, let's go. And basically the next day came in, put a uni degree on hold. I remember, like, that was a pretty rough couple of months, because she just restructured everything and was like, yeah, cool, we've got to make profit from now on in. So she actually told me last night, it was pretty funny. She's like, we've been profitable 92.5% of the months that I've been running.
It's a good statistic to have.
Yeah. And I'm like, fuck, don't go back and tell me what it was before.
Yeah.
Like, it'd probably be 8% of the time.
Yeah.
Realistically.
Yeah. How
So
interesting.
Yeah. And I guess, like, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs that are married. So kind of, I also understand the dynamic as well of, like, you're a married couple first that just happens to be business partners.
Yeah.
You're not business partners that are married. You're actually, the relationship comes first. So
yeah. Was it hard for you to accept help, like, especially from your significant other?
no, because it's just that no ego thing, right? It's just kind of like, I understand, and same vice versa. Like, if I want to sort of say, hey, I think this is the call, like, it's coming from a good place always.
Yeah.
And I just always knew that, but nah, it hasn't been that part's not the hard part. I think it's just having those boundaries can be hard. It's like Saturday morning, someone has a good idea. It's like, you could spend 3 hours talking about it, or you could just enjoy your Saturday and do something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
are you talking about, you usually have the good idea and you want to talk about it and she doesn't? Or
It's one or two of us. Like, I think at the moment it's more in the Marley camp. Like, she will just get struck with a good idea and go, hey, like, what do you reckon of this? And I love that about business. Like, I love all that spontaneity, but then also at the same time, it can, if you don't know how to, like, have a boundary around that, it can just go forever.
Yeah. Well, look, just to give you, my experience as well. I know that, when I first started, I wasn't necessarily doing, like, our video agency, but I was doing some social media workshops and things like that.
Yeah, I remember you telling me,
Yeah, Jess came in because she could see how stressed I was or how much help I needed. She offered, and I jumped at the opportunity because I was like, yeah, great, that would be awesome. And initially, like because the biggest thing that I got challenged with was exactly like what you're talking about, the ego side of it. Like, this is my business, this is how I do things. And it wasn't until I really stepped back and let her bring and flourish in what we do that actually really seen the benefits of not only the husband-wife dynamic within a business, but also the understanding of like, this is like, we're in a partnership. It's not Alan's business. We're in a partnership now. Yeah. Like, and I can tell you now, like, whilst from appearances, it looks like that, like, you know, I'm doing all the work and you know, I'm out feeling, I can guarantee you, like, when our clients our clients really do know what's actually going on behind the scenes.
They know who the real hero is.
Yeah, exactly right. You know,
language is interesting. So like, a lot of clients, like, sometimes say we have like a new client come to us and they're like a husband and wife team, whatever. And like, if it, you know, one of them says like, oh, it's my business, like, that's, you know, that creates instant stuff. It's like, well, no, it's your business together. Like that, just little things like that. But yeah, I remember you telling me that we played some pool together when you came down here. And your story is quite hilarious of just how you just went for it. I love it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for jumping on. That was nice, short and sweet. If people are interested in finding out more about Drew Slater, or, you know, interested in finding out more, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Easiest way is just go to the website, moneyuptimedown.com. And yeah, there's probably something you can grab there, and that would be the start of your journey. Yeah.
Just as a side note, Drew and Marley are amazing, amazing people. I know a lot of the stuff that we've obviously talked about today is very, very high level, but there's a lot more deeper bits and pieces that you'll experience and obviously get as you go along the journey. And I'm forever grateful for the work that we have done and will continue to do.
Yeah, man, we've smashed it. So it's been a pleasure for us, and yeah, we love working with you. So can't wait to do another one of these in 6 months' time and see where we're at.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you rate us, or put a rating on the app. This, as you can tell, this is the first time I'm asking for ratings and shit like that. But make sure you give us a follow on all your good platforms. Give us a rating. Say something nice, if you will, and make sure you catch the next episode. Peace out.
Thanks, brother.
So thank you for hanging around right to the end. We hope you've really enjoyed today's episode. And if you have, we'd love some feedback. So feel free to give us a rating on your favorite podcast platforms. Obviously, feel free to hit that subscribe button at the same time as well. If you'd like to, you know, reach out to us personally or reach out to me directly, you can find me on Instagram at Alan Howle, which is AlanHowle. If you're interested in finding out more about how we work with clients to create a video presence, you can head to tripleeffect.com.au, where we create 6 months worth of video content for YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok, and film it all in 2 days. So we do everything from scripting, filming, editing, as well as publishing all the videos to all of the channels on a weekly basis for our clients. So thank you again for listening. Look forward to sharing another episode very soon.